The Stark Tower has been an iconic part of the MCU, but much like the major changes we saw in Endgame, change is also coming to the tower as well. With the Avengers relocated in upstate New York for the time being, the sale and renovation of the tower has been hinted at for some time, especially in SpiderMan films. But who actually bought the tower, and how will the new ownership impact the rest of the MCU? Well, we have a theory about that. Some seeds have already been planted about the new tower owners. And not only will the possible new owner have major implications for the city of New York, but he could be a thorn in Thor's side as a major villain in the upcoming Thor sequel. New York City is full of real estate, but in the MCU, there only seems to be one building that matters: Stark Tower. First introduced in the Avengers, the tower has become an iconic part of the MCU. Originally all Tony's pride and joy, a battle with Loki transformed Stark's plans, and eventually the Stark Tower was turned into the Avengers Tower. Well, turns out, having a huge base for superheroes would pretty much be a giant A-sized target looming over the giant city. This is when Happy Hogan revealed in Spider-Man Homecoming that the tower was sold. Stark was packing up shop and everything was moving to the secret Avengers headquarters in upstate New York. Well, that's all well and good, but Hogan never actually revealed who did buy the tower. Whoever did is well underway on construction and renovation plans though. In Spider-Man Far From Home, Peter Parker actually does come home and his web swinging through the city reveals the huge construction site. Naturally, with mentions of the massive tower and its sale in both Spider-Man solo movies, assuming the whole Disney and Sony fight ends up working out, one of the main assumptions is that the new owner would be someone key to the Spider-Man universe. Someone we haven't seen in the MCU version of the story. Bonesaw McGraw! I'm just kidding. We're of course referring to Norman Osborn. How epic would it have been to have a quick pan up to the top of the towering building to see the iconic Avengers A replaced with a huge Oscorp logo? After taking on the Vulture and Mysterio, tossing Norman Osborn into the mix would be a great challenge for Spider-Man, especially after he was framed for the violent actions against Mysterio and his secret identity is now public. Norman could easily win over the masses on his side while Peter struggled with the public disdain towards the hero. The psychological battle would build up until we started seeing flying pumpkin bombs exploding all over New York City. It all basically comes down to wishful thinking. Despite already seeing multiple versions of the Green Goblin on the big screen, he is one of Spider-Man's biggest foes, and even just having Norman Osborn in the MCU could have some major implications. But Norman Osborn isn't the only name floating around the Marvel message boards about the new Avengers Tower owner. Owning a piece of property like that would take some big bucks. Probably something a single person couldn't pay for on their own. But maybe, just maybe, 4 people could team up and afford the tower together. That would be just fantastic. Now that Disney owns the rights to the Fantastic Four, people are looking for any little sign of the group's arrival in the MCU. And this time, there was a literal sign. In the closing moments of Spider-Man Far From Home, when Parker swings past the construction site, there's a sign that reads, "We can't wait to show you what comes next," along with the numbers 1, 2, 3, and a question mark following the 3. That has to be a sign alluding to the Fantastic Four. While this could be perceived as the biggest clue of the new Avengers Tower owners, the question mark probably refers to Phase 4 of the MCU. Far From Home represented the end of Phase 3, so it only makes sense that Phase 4 would be the reason for the sign. Plus, we already saw how much trouble the Avengers Tower caused for heroes. It's not really the greatest place for another superhero hideout. And this leaves us with one of our best options yet. Someone who ticks all the boxes, has been hinted at in multiple MCU movies, has connections with Tony Stark, and could turn out to be a foe for both Thor and Spider-Man. His name? Dario Ager. To mainstream MCU fans, the name may not ring any bells, but he has a rich history in the pages of Marvel Comics, and may be better known as the villain Minotaur. The key to his connection to the Avengers Tower is the job he holds as CEO of the Roxxon Energy Corporation. The Roxxon Energy Corporation is a powerful company with ties to oil, gas, and other natural resources. In the world of Marvel, it's one of the richest companies, and Ager runs it all. He has one goal with his money: to make as much money as possible without a care for pollution, regulations, or anything getting in his way. The MCU has already brilliantly established the Roxxon company through various movies and television shows, making it believable that they would dip into their massive bank accounts and put a little money down for the Avengers Tower. One of the first appearances of Roxxon actually came in Iron Man through the form of a sign. Iron Man 2 featured a Roxxon race car, and the deep history of Roxxon's roots through money and power were explored in both seasons of Agent Carter, where the set pieces revealed the company's ruthless power. Even short one-shots like A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to Thor's Hammer featured a Roxxon gas station. Besides the company itself, we've met some of the key employees behind the mega corporation. One of them was Thomas Richards. You may not recognize him by name, but you'll remember the scene in Iron Man 3 when the Mandarin gives the president 30 seconds to call him or he'll shoot Thomas right in the skull. Well, the Mandarin also reveals that Thomas is one of the head accountants for Roxxon. And when the Mandarin's plans are all revealed to be a big ruse, we can tell how deep-rooted the evil roots of Roxxon goes. One of the biggest uses of Roxxon and their employees can be found in the freeform series Cloak and Dagger. The company serves as one of the main antagonists for the show, diving deeper into the world of corruption and money. It's here we meet one of the company's CEOs, Peter Scarborough. Long story short, Peter ends up in a coma, leaving a pretty big CEO position open, and one that could help Dario Ager rise through the ranks until he eventually purchases the Avengers Tower. But besides being rich, powerful, and doing anything to stay that way, you might be wondering why exactly does Dario refer to himself as the Minotaur? Well, it's simple. Because he can transform into one at will. Kinda like the Hulk transforming, but with a little more control and purpose. Not a good fit for someone with evil intentions. At the age of 9, Dario and his family visited an island they owned. It was invaded by pirates, and Dario was the only survivor, who relied on a Minotaur statue to give him hope. This allowed Dario to transform into the giant beast, something he learned to use whenever money and power weren't enough. Knowing his background, Dario Ager could be the perfect fit as the new Avengers Tower owner. As CEO of Roxxon, he could easily afford the real estate, and his history as a villain would make him a compelling antagonist for a number of heroes. Sure, we could wait and see him debut in a future SpiderMan movie, but there's an even better option. One ripped right from the pages of Marvel Comics. In the comics, Ager is one of the main enemies to Thor and Jane, giving him a great position to be one of the main villains in Thor: Love and Thunder. Dario played a big part in the all-new, all-different Marvel arc, one which also saw Jane take on the role of Thor. As the CEO of Roxxon, Dario polluted the Earth freely, something Thor was not too happy with. He ended up using lightning blasts to destroy a number of Roxxon plants, and Dario retaliated by polluting the new Asgard on Earth, a land which was set up in Avengers Endgame. With all these puzzle pieces fitting together, the live-action version of Dario would be a natural fit. With the history of Roxxon in the MCU, there would be precedent for Jane to be associated with the company. Some classic MCU flashbacks could even reveal a younger Jane protesting outside of their company, adding even more to the history and personal struggles that could be presented if Jane and Dario were to go head-to-head in a battle. After seeing Thor Ragnarok director Taika Waititi taking on some of the more obscure characters, including the Fenris Wolf and Korg, we have no doubt that he could handle the showcase of a man who could transform into a Minotaur without things becoming too cheesy or not fitting within the vision of the MCU. One of the main issues in adding Dario Ager into the mix is how crowded Thor: Love and Thunder already seems. There's 3 main heroes, Jane, Thor, and Valkyrie, along with the announcement that the Enchantress would serve as the main villain. If some of the story ventures off into space and other worlds, we could see Dario Ager becoming a minor character who's part of the Earth struggles that the characters have to deal with. Even if he isn't a main villain, just his introduction alone could help set up the future of the Avengers Tower in the MCU. Keeping these smaller connections has been a key for making the MCU feel like a whole universe. And we cannot talk about Dario Ager and his connection to the world of Thor without mentioning the War of the Realms. This comic book story arc was one of Thor's biggest challenges, as a huge attack was planned across all 10 realms, including Earth. While Malekith was the one leading the charge in the story, Dario was heavily involved as he disabled the world's communication systems, making it even harder for Thor to communicate with other heroes and put a stop to the disaster. The realms have been a big focus in previous Thor movies, and returning to the story for a Thor sequel only makes sense. While the story may not play out in Thor: Love and Thunder, a post-credits scene could hint at the massive war in a possible 5th Thor film. Imagine that. Wow, we have gone down a deep hole when discussing a simple real estate transaction. But this is the Marvel Universe after all. Nothing is as simple as setting up a mortgage payment. But now we saved the biggest theory of them all. What if Tony Stark faked his demise and bought the Avengers Tower under a fake name? So no matter who places their name on top of the Avengers Tower, one thing is for sure. It's gonna create some major shockwaves in the MCU and create plenty of problems for our heroes. So who do you think will buy the Avengers Tower? What hero will it impact the most? Any hints or details we missed? Let us know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to ScreenRant for more great content.